Welcome back from your wee break. I hope you had a little bit of a break, maybe stretch the arms a bit, stretch the brain muscles, just got all the blood flowing. So guys, remember what we're looking at now. We're looking at how the kidney functions. And this is, as I said to you, quite a difficult, thing to try and explain, to look at, but we're just going to go through it step by step. Now, in the previous segment, we looked at this concept of what a nephron is, and we're going to look at it in greater detail as we go along. Now, the nephron is the working unit. The nephron does the work in the kidney, not the whole organ. So imagine you've got millions of these filtering, and imagine at the end, each little one drops a little drop of urine into the kidney to be able to excrete. Now, what we're going to look at is going to see how this whole functioning occurs. And we're going to have a three-step process. In this segment, we're going to look at a process called glomerular filtration. There are three processes in this whole process: glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular excretion. The name very often gives a hint of exactly what is happening. Okay, so let's take a look at this first process. When we look at the process, you also need to think. I always tell my kids, structure versus function. How is it made? What does it look like so that it enables things to work very, very smoothly? And this is a concept that is very important for the next section. Okay, guys, so what happens, I want you to have a look at the diagram over here. This is what we call the renal corpuscle. And sometimes I've seen, right, it's also called, the Malpighian corpuscle. Right, I prefer the renal corpuscle, but this is called the Malpighian. And what it does, what are we looking through here, is this word filtration. To filtrate means, or filtration means to filter. And what are we filtering? Here, lovely bold red, we have two blood vessels. Now, these blood vessels are arterioles, which means they are small arteries. And they become smaller and smaller, and they are these convoluted group of blood vessels that are called our capillaries. Now, if you can remember when we looked at capillaries, we know they are very thin structures. They're only made up of one layer of cells. I hope you maybe can remember the endothelium, a layer of squamous epithelium. They are very thin. Why do we want something thin? Because we've got to move things. Look at my arrows. I want to filter my blood. So I need to get everything that's in the blood into the nephron, because what is the nephron going to do? It's going to filter, okay? It's going to filter it. So I need to be able to filter it quite efficiently. Now, if you have a look at this diagram, I don't know if you can see that this blood vessel, the afferent, is thicker than this blood vessel. And that is really good because it creates pressure. So why is pressure good? It creates squeezing. Now have a look. If more blood goes in than comes out, you've got like squeezing happening over here. All this blood is trapped and it's forced out into the kidney. All right? So when we look at this whole concept of glomerular filtration, glomerular blood, filtrationing filter, filtering stuff in the blood, forcing it out of the blood into, all right, this Bowman's capsule, this nephron. Remember, what does the work? The nephron does. So when we have this high pressure, it's good. It forces it. It squeezes it, all right? And it forces all this blood to move as quickly as possible into this Bowman's capsule. Now, if you have a look at the Bowman's capsule, I want you to have a look at this, All right, really weird diagram over here. The Bowman's capsule, right, on the inside has got these specialized cells, and they are called podo. Oh, let me erase that quickly. All right, not bodo. All right, let's go podo. Now, what a podocyte is, have a look. It's wrapped around the blood vessel, and it has all these squigglies. And what it does is it forces, when the blood comes through, it's forced into these cells. They are large surface area, and they've got these little slits. It's almost like a comb. And what can filter through those? Things in the blood. But now I want you to keep in mind what things in the blood. That is going to be really essential. What part of the blood am I going to get through? Do you see how it's wrapped up oh so nicely here? That here's the blood vessel, right? So everything can go through these filtration slits. Now, if I look at this, what do I filter? This is really important. What must be here? Now, if I have a very thin layer here, and I have a very thin layer over here, size matters. What do I mean by size matters? Things that are too big. If you are too big, you cannot go through. Right? So if you are too large, you are not allowed to go through into the nephron. What would be too big? Number one, all the blood cells. Right? We don't want the red blood cell, the white blood cell, and the platelets. We don't want them to get through. They are too big. So what are they going to do? They're going to go straight through, and they're not going to be infected at all. Another thing we don't want are big protein bodies, right? We don't want those. They are too big. We don't want them. And what are they going to do? Oops, they're going to find their way back again. So they're not going to come into the nephron. So guys, if you find blood or if you find protein in your urine, that might be an indication that something is wrong. Right? Why would there be blood? Why would there be proteins? Because they don't filter through. Maybe something could be seriously wrong. But what is in the blood? Okay, so first thing that it is, there's going to be the waste products. And those are important. My urea, my uric acid, and my creatinine. They dissolved, they're my nitrogenous wastes, and they are in the blood. They definitely have to go through. Then there are things dissolved in the blood. Glucose, amino acids. What else? Salt. Some vitamins maybe. All right, and maybe I've got things, maybe I've got colorants. I ate beetroot, and now all of a sudden my urine is red. Or I had a headache, and I took a headache tablet, so I might have drugs in my system. Right? So I've got a whole list of things that are dissolved in the blood plasma. Okay, blood plasma. They are small enough. They are going to be, let me change the color quickly. They are going to be small enough to move by this ultrafiltration, ultra squeezing. By this ultrafiltration, they are then going to move from the glomerulus. Remember, what was my glomerulus? My blood, because it's glomerular filtration. They're going to move out of the blood, and they are going to move into the nephron. All of this stuff that's moved to it, moves into this and is now called the filtrate. And this is now going to move through the rest of the nephron. Now we don't usually do questions all the time, but I'm going to have maybe a little bit of time just to make you aware that this process of glomerular filtration is a question that is asked constantly. Right? When we look at the kidney, the structure of the nephron, when this whole structure, because as you can see, it tells you it's the renal corpuscle. It says study the diagram. All right, guys, now the next question is quite a common question, and it's got two parts to it. It says name and explain the process that occurs in the renal corpuscle. Now, the process you're going to say is glomerular filtration. Now, that is just the first part. This is the difficult part. What do you have to explain? You must explain the difference in size between the afferent and efferent. And that leads to pressure, ultrafiltration. You also need to describe what moves out of the glomerulus, what moves out. You need to tell me what happens, what is in the blood, what moves into the Bowman's capsule. You also need to explain the concepts of the podocyte. Why do the podocytes with their filtration slits increase the surface area? So when it comes to this question, as I said, it's often asked. You need to explain, write down in point form, make sure you know it, right, how glomerular filtration occurs.